We have a very distinguished gathering of experts and professionals. We thank you for sharing your expertise with us today to help us illuminate and explore some of the critical challenges our youth are facing.
I believe that a real movement for early childhood years can be done only if we are thinking about embracing all children. You and I want to live in safe and secure neighborhoods. We want people to grow up to own homes and cars and participate in the democracy of this republic. And if we want those things, then we ought to know the quite extraordinary evidence of the power of early investment, the power to grow children who dream and have a real chance to achieve those dreams. I've come away convinced that mindfulness speaks to the people we want to be and the community we want to be and, frankly, the country we want or should want to be.
So one of the things I'm offering here is this idea of what I call the power of mindfulness, which is because of the populations I work with and my experiences from Yale to jail, from the locker room to the boardrooms. I grew up poor, and having to really look at that and see that all of these filters or all of this conditioning, whether it's cultural or environmental, are limitations, and that the practice allowed me, because I was going inside, and it's what I would call playing the inner game. What I needed to do is tune inside and see what the silence was telling me.
What we are finding now is that treatments like trauma resolution and mindfulness are the healing that the brain needs to let people move forward. To a T, this is what they tell me. The medication stopped the voices, but I was still in a fog. It was the mindfulness that lifted that fog for the first time and enabled me to move forward. And that's what this is about.
I cannot emphasize enough how much important is mindfulness in the academics setting and applies to not only medical students, but of course also to the people who teach them. It gives an opportunity to us as educators to connect with students and bring in them the very best to become great doctors.
This is when mindfulness is most important. It's important that we preemptively educate our children about mindfulness so that they have that toolkit, that skill set available to them when they are challenged with stressful situations in healthcare environments, in schools, and everywhere else. Now we know that not only does mindfulness help when it comes to anxiety and depression and improving your metabolism by enhancing your activity of insulin, by reducing blood pressure, it can help us reduce our pain threshold, but it actually can also allow us to change the very makeup of our genes.
And I'm a chronic disease epidemiologist by training. We know 90% of what causes premature death and disability. It's the underlying health behaviors that we all engage in or don't engage in. Underlying all of that is the stress of modern living. I've come to the conclusion that these mindfulness practices are critical to address this underlying stress, which will then in turn allow us to make more healthy choices and ultimately lower the burden of disease in the population.
Mindfulness is about being in the here and the now without a story. What we find across many studies now is that mindfulness training can actually reduce the self-perceived sense of stress and actually improve self-reported well-being. What we know is that there's a lot of very encouraging evidence and a lot more needs to be done. Overall, from everything we see, mindfulness is effective, and there's growing support that it may actually be quite beneficial for stress, burnout, and improving well-being in children as well as in educators.
Focus, for me, would be the emphasis on chronic illnesses, where there's a lot of pain, where there's a lot of suffering, where people have to come to grips with chronic illness and make the adjustment. Those involve parents as well. Mindful parenting is going to be an essential ingredient of any interventions that we design for kids in healthcare settings. Having parents who are modeling compassion, self-control, and restraint, good judgment, and concern and empathy.
Mindfulness is such an important component of teaching our children. I wanted to speak before about kindness, about bullying, and yes, we have many, many programs about how to deal with bullying. And I think that mindfulness is probably going to be the most powerful way because we demonstrate kindness. Whenever you see something going on in school, whether you're a teacher, a principal, or a student, you stop. You take a deep breath. You observe what's going on, and you proceed with kindness.
I find power in this concept and this energy and this body of research and curriculum and teaching and acts and actions and ideas behind mindfulness. Children and adults don't know how to deal with stress and anxiety. Don't expect them to learn it by themselves. They need to be taught. Mindfulness improves health. Again, the connection is research-based, believing that from the impossible to the inevitable, there's nothing but belief, skill, and will, that we use our wisdom, use the power of our conviction, and we use the will, the courage to do the right thing and elevate children upon our collective shoulders so they can get to see and live and experience a horizon that stretches out far beyond what they can see from the streets, the corners where they are born, where they live, and where shamefully, unfortunately, many of them perish. We can teach them better if we take the time. If side by side with reading, we teach compassion. If side by side with math, we teach understanding. If side by side with science, we teach love and happiness and reflection. Thank you and have a fantastic day.